Okay, so here we have another CT engine. I've been repairing the block during the week. Such things as putting in new studs, repairing and recovering the threaded holes, tap all the studs, paint the top of the engine, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the tinware which has been painted up, but it now has to have any threads tapped out, any bent bits of tinware sorted out, any blocked up holes sorted out. And then we're also going to be modifying the piece slightly. We'll be cutting off that, for example, because we're not going to be running a thermostat. Here we are, more tinware. This has all had to be beaten flat. These are going to be tapped out. And as you can see, this one here is broken off. So it's going to have to be ground out and re-tapped. There's the broken little bit. Comes off with the grinder. And now we'll be able to save this thread. Here we have a screw seized into the tinware. Another broken stud. And all the rest is still to clean out. Right. Here we've got the main tail box sat in a big chunk of girder. It's a battered old thing with a homemade exhaust section on it and so on. And what I've got to do to this now is I've got to remove these broken studs. There's one that's been butchered in the past, and there's two more broken, one there and one down there. So they'll have to be taken out and re-threaded if possible. Okay. Go. Okay, so now we're fitting the sump plate with a genuine Airling of North America gasket set, which is a nicely made card. So, first gasket goes on. These are new studs that we put in, that we glued in overnight with locking compound. On goes the strainer. On goes the plate. Little copper washer. And locking nut. This has been done with bolts screwed straight into the crankcase, which is not a good idea, because they will very soon chew up the aluminium. There we are. That's just to hold it in place, and then I just go around and settle the thing down. Okay, cut. Okay, right. Once you've got the sump plate down, you crank it down, like you're going to do the cylinder heads eventually, to 8 Newton meters. Don't need to do any more. It takes quite a lot of going down because you're compressing 2 big cardboard gaskets and little copper washers. That one's gone. That one's gone. Just keep going around until you can't feel there's any more movement in them. And then like that. Then it goes to together, it won't leak. There we go. Right, one other thing. This plate came with this sump washer, with this sump nut, with just a flat iron washer. I don't think that's a very good idea. In the German kit, it comes with a proper crush washer. Okay, end of. That's it. Right, so there we are for this evening. That's the oil plate on. Studs all cleaned up. Top of the engine. 4 new pistons with their rings all carefully in. And then over there is all the tin work that's all been tidied up, ready for putting on. Okay, so now we're going to start putting the pistons onto the conrods. I'll show you the piston up closely. See, there's an arrow. It was done by laser nowadays, it's all cut by laser. An arrow. All the pistons have an arrow in them, so they all have to point in the same direction, i.e. towards the front of the engine. Right. Now, being new pistons, you should be able to just push the gudgeon pin out far enough so that there's enough there so that you can engage it easily through the small end, which I'm going to give another clean to, another little oiling, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so what we've done now is we've placed the end of the gudgeon pin into the conrod just at the beginning. We make sure obviously the piston is round the right way. And then if you've got everything engaged correctly, you should just be able to slide the gudgeon pin in, not too far. It's inside the piston. And then we take the circlips and we'll put one circlip in there first, then we push the gudgeon pin so it goes all the way in, and then you put the second circlip in. And then once you've done that, you put the second circlip in, and make sure you turn the circlip round a complete rotation to make sure it's perfectly bedded in. Okay. Okay, here's the circlip. Goes into its slot to make sure it's well bedded in. Turn it round, one full turn, and so on. Okay. For assembling the gudgeon pins, I use a little oil can with STP or WINS or something similar in there. Okay, now we turn the engine round and we'll do the same thing the other side. Right, so now we have paper gasket, slightly greased. You grease the cylinder slightly and then put the paper gasket on so it won't flop about or fall off. We have now thoroughly oiled the piston rings, made sure that they're 120 degrees apart, put the piston ring compressor on and tightened it up. Okay, now if you've got it right, you should just be able to put the cylinder on, straight on the end of the piston, line it up, a little thump with your hand, and it should go on. If it resists, it means you're forcing against a ring and you might break it. So take your time and do it right. And there we are. No need to push the cylinder on too far. As long as you can just see the gudgeon pin. That's this one here, you see. Once you can see that, there, it means you've pushed the cylinder on far enough, and now you can take off the ring compressor, and you can marry up the little paper gasket nicely into there. Then after that, we put the keepers on. Don't forget, slot side goes to the middle. Don't put the cylinders on back to front, because you don't really get the second one on, and you have to take it off again and do it right this time. Okay? Flat side to the middle. Okay. Okay, so now we have 2 cylinders, 2 pistons, 2 keepers, 1 keeper one side, 1 keeper the other side. This keeps it in, stops it from moving about, or you eventually start doing the same thing on the other side. Now is a good time to fit your cool tinware. Right? Now this has all been painted up nicely in hammerite and so on. This is all very nice, and it just fits basically by its own gumption. It just clips in place like that. You just make sure it's all nicely in place, all nicely clipped in, and then you can forget about it. Because if you can forget about it now, you don't want to forget about it later when you've fitted on your cylinder heads and your pushrod tubes and so on, and then you discover you've forgotten your tinware. Very, very important. The engine will not run very far without this. Okay, then we're going to just tidy this up, and then we turn around and do the other side. There we go. So there we have it. All 4 cylinders and pistons put on, keepers in place. Now we can start thinking about pushrod tubes and cylinder heads. But first, a cup of tea.